That's the difference between temporal emotions like happiness, sadness, anger, whatever that is. That's all cracking on the surface of the ocean. But joy is that swell. Joy is that movement that is undeterred by anything external to us. And that's what I'd like to talk about today. There's a wonderful story of a student who comes to a Buddhist monk and says, Master, I hear you're enlightened. You were depressed before you got enlightened. Are you still depressed? And the master thinks about it and sits with it for a minute and says, why, yes, I'm still depressed. I just don't seem to mind it anymore. Now, to me, that's the difference between joy and happiness. Underneath the temporal emotions, there's a deep abiding silence, a deep abiding joy, and nothing in this world can touch that. And each person here, every single person you know, has this. Some people just realize it more than others, but that doesn't make them special. We're all special. And I experienced this for myself last year when I went to Guinea-Bissau in Africa. My cousin was adopting a baby out of this orphanage. And, of course, it's an incredibly sad situation. 300 orphan kids, incredibly poor, no shoes, walking in dirt. And so they all come up to, any Westerner that comes there, they just cling on to you. So I'm just walking and holding hands with these little kids. And as I was walking, I was just kind of checking in, and I was like, this doesn't feel natural to me. What would I do if these were my nephews? And so I thought, well, so I shoved this kid. I just pushed this kid in the shoulder, and it started this massive brawl. And it was, kids were just howling with laughter, and every time I come out of the building, we had this big, huge brawl, and kids pushing around. I taught them how to do a rugby scrum, so they're pushing against. And there was just nothing but squeals and laughter and joy. And to me, it's in that horrific situation, which we would judge, poor and destitute and orphans. Even in the midst of that, there's tremendous joy. And so, to me, that's what joy is. That's what joy is. Now, I've also noticed as I continue to meditate on this all week that joy cannot exist in the presence of fear. You ever notice that? Fear and joy are mutually exclusive. You can't have both. We're either believing in the fear or we're believing in something else, and that's where the joy arises. So, our culture, unfortunately, if you turn on the TV, it just pushes fear all day long. Anybody notice this? Yeah? What your kids are drinking, what's in your water tonight at 5? Honey, what's in our water? Who's talking to your kids tonight at 6? This is what they do all day long. And it just creates an entire culture of fear, and it's hard for that joy to come bubbling up when we meditate on that. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be aware of the difficult things in life, absolutely. But do we want to meditate on this? Do we want to make that our central preoccupation? And I say no. I say be aware, act in the proper manner, be appropriate, but is there something else that we can meditate upon other than fear? So, an example of this was last year, as Teresa mentioned, I was sailing my boat from San Diego down to the Panama Canal, and I found myself in this horrible lightning storm off of Nicaragua, and it was absolutely terrifying. There's lightning everywhere, the crew was all upset, and I was on the midnight ship, and about an hour later, this massive lightning strike, went down about 50 yards from the boat, and I just sat there with this other crew member. We didn't say anything for like 5 minutes. And then, to this day, I still don't know why this happened, but I was in so much fear, and then suddenly something clicked, and I started laughing. And I still don't know why. I started kind of giggling. And to me, it's when you're in the grip of fear, underneath it is tremendous joy. And the fear says, look for security in this temporal world. Look for something to hang on to. And there is nothing to hang on to except that internal small voice, that presence, that spirit which is within us. And that's the eternal part of us. And that's what I'd like to close on here today is if you want to know joy, if you really want to know joy that nothing in this world can ever take away from you, then we have to know ourselves. Socrates said, know thyself. And what he's talking about there is, are you the body? Well, the body goes. Are you the mind? Well, the mind sure goes. Are you your emotions? Well, they change every moment of the day. What part of you, what part of each one of us does not change? And the answer to that is that awareness, that witness that watches you your entire life, that witness that's aware right in this moment of the birds, of that airplane going overhead. You know, when I'm 90 years old in my bed and I can't move in the nursing home, I'll still have this awareness, I'll still have this witness, and that is who each one of us are. And if you want joy, it's all it is a simple shift in perception from I'm this thing that passes and is temporal to I am that still small voice. I am that witness, that eternal witness. And if we can identify with that, nothing but joy comes from that. So thank you for your time today. God bless.
I am. We can label ourselves so often. I am busy, I am powerful, I'm afraid, I'm ugly, I'm this, I'm that, I'm all the things that all of us run our drama in our heads. But joy does come from that place of stillness and silence and recognizing that you are. You just are. You're spirit. You're divine. You're beautiful. You're perfect. You're amazing exactly as you are. And all that other stuff is just story. It's just blah, 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 blah. The stuff that hangs on you and somebody tells you on that you're that. And they label you. So thank you, Mike, for reminding us. And thank you for reminding us what the opposite of joy is. Because fear is a demon. Here's the thing that will sap your energy and steal your joy and steal your life force. And that is the thing, my friends, that is the boogeyman out there. The boogeyman is the fear. It's not the thing that's inside of you. This next speaker is amazing and beautiful. Her name is Linda Austin, and I was just blessed to be connected to her through, I see some wise women up front. Shout out to the wise women. A group of very powerful women that have been meeting for years and years and years, and I got to meet Linda Austin through that. She is just simply a voice of the empowered human, the empowered spirit here on earth. And she is a certified coach. She's a former business owner. She's very successful in her ability and her willingness to share her gifts with other people. And what I love about her is her website is followjoy.com. I mean, that's freaking awesome. I want that URL, followjoy.com, because she not only sends it on her URL, but she lives it. Ladies and gentlemen, our 9 a.m. spiritual leader, Linda Austin. Can you hear me? Yes. Great. Because when you sit back here, you can't hear what people are saying out here. I'm so happy to be here today to talk about joy, because, as Teresa said, it's been the focus of my work. That doesn't make sense. My work is about joy. My joy is about joy. I spend a great deal of my life helping people find their joy and then find the courage to follow it. Because I am a firm believer that joy is the path to enlightenment, to fulfillment, to sharing, to being present in the world from a place of soul. I so loved what Mike had to say about the ocean, because I'm a Pisces, I'm a water person, so anybody talks about the water, that's great. And also what he said about joy bubbling up, because the way I have always connected with joy is the understanding that it's like a spring. It bubbles up from inside. You can't tap it. It doesn't go anywhere. My dad
told me one time when he was trying to figure out emotions, because when he grew up, the only emotions he really felt were fear and anger and disappointment. So as an adult, he was fascinated by experiencing joy and happiness and fulfillment. And he told me one time that happiness was like the river. It flowed, and anywhere along the way, you could find happiness. But joy was a spring that was connected to your soul. And if you wanted to get back into that place, you had to go back to that soul connection. Joy is only possible, in my world, when you are present in the moment. You have to be here now to experience joy. Like Mike said, it's not about what happened last week. It's not about what's going to happen next week. Joy comes to us in a surprise. You come across something, a beautiful flower, or kids playing, or one of your children runs up to you and is really excited. It opens you up. There's joy in that moment. You can't create that outside of the moment. You can't say, tomorrow I'm going to be joyful because something's going to happen in my life. You have to be open to the now. And that's being connected to your soul. Joy is an emotion that connects you to your soul and love. It's impossible to not be in love with the world when you're experiencing joy. When you have a joyful moment, you can't stop it. Time stops. There's nothing more than that moment, that exact time when everything came together to be perfect, to create that bubbling feeling of joy. And you can't do it artificially. It's all real. One of the things I think we forget is that we have to find our joy. What gives someone else joy is not necessarily what's going to make you happy. I'm a dog person. I'm never going to find joy around a cat. Cat people don't get that. I've got 4 kids. They have brought so much joy into my life. Someone who doesn't have kids doesn't get that either. I don't always get it all the time. But it's different for every person. That's why I really encourage people to look at what are the moments in your life when time stops, when there's nothing else going on at that moment. You are totally focused in that moment and it's bubbling up in you. Pay attention. Someone told me one time that joy is the breadcrumbs to enlightenment. That's why my website says follow joy. If you experience a joyful moment, pay attention. What was it? Look for it. Be open to it. Joy feeds you. It feeds your soul. Not only that, it fills you up. That spring comes bubbling up and it bubbles out of you, and it's impossible to see someone who is experiencing that joyful moment and not be touched by it. If you've ever watched a little kid and a puppy, I dare you, even if you're not a kid person or a dog person, you will smile. You will experience that that is a joyful moment. It lifts you up. Like Mike said, it's impossible to be afraid when you're experiencing joy. Because when you are fully present in the moment, you understand there's nothing to be afraid of. Because all the fears we have are about what did happen or what might happen. It's all made up. Make up good stuff. When you are present in the moment, you cannot be afraid.